Alright, so usually I post videos of the kids, but here's one of me giving some thoughts and observations if you'd care to hear them, including things about fibromyalgia, pain management, kids, mom life, autism, autistic kids, and adult diagnosis autism. These are all things I'm likely to cover in the next couple of minutes. So at the moment, I'm in my daughter's room cleaning up. She's 3.5. My son is 5. They're both autistic. So am I, which I just found out like 2 years ago. Something I've known since I was 15, 20 years ago at least. Oh, I feel like the crypt keeper whenever I say that kind of crap. Is that I have fibromyalgia. Now, if you know what fibromyalgia is, great. Some of you probably do because you're Lady Gaga fans, and she's been very public about the fact that she has this condition as well. If you don't know what it is, here's the cliff notes. Every muscle in your body goes haywire all the time. Every last damn thing hurts. All the time. Is it manageable? Yes. Is it easy to manage? No. No. Because basically your own body is throwing every ounce of hate at you it can just because you woke up. Now, if, like myself, you've also had issues with depression, you understand that mental illness can do the exact same thing from a psychological and emotional standpoint. If, like me, you have both of these conditions, you can understand that getting out of bed, it's a win. It's a win. You do more than that, gravy. There are days. And then I had 2 kids. And then both of those kids were diagnosed with autism. And then hearing the explanations of autism and how it can be genetic, how they're working to discover why autism happens and in whom it happens, I said to the pediatric specialist, is it possible you're reading my memoir? Because you're describing me damn near perfect. Because of when I was born, 1983, she said it's quite possible that I was in between diagnoses, which means that there's these specialized books in medicine, which have complicated names and acronyms that most people will never remember, so I won't bore you. But they basically come out every 10 to 15 years, because in truth, it takes that long to understand and research all of these conditions. And I was born in between them, which means basically I slipped the net. No one thought to check me for it because I never presented as someone they assumed would have it. Like I never gave off the typical signs. Now, part of that is because women in general, not all, in general, don't present in what's referred to as an overt manner. Autistic females don't act like the standard definition of autism because forever and a day ago, the universe decided that men were in charge of everything. So it makes sense that everyone would assume God is a man. And that means that only men were studied. So it's taken infinitely longer for women to get accurate, appropriate diagnoses. So, I was diagnosed about 2 years ago. Sticker on the carpet, okay? And I've had to not unlearn things, but relearn and restructure what I know. Because once you educate yourself about a condition that you have, like fibromyalgia, like mental health concerns such as depression, like autism, which is a genetic condition, you start to understand more and more things in hindsight, which is always 20/20. And you look back and understand how all of these things happened and why they happened the way they did. And it's possible for you to learn to let go of a lot of things when you have that informational filter to put over your past. But there's some things that are just habit. They're just ingrained. And in the case of the fibro, I have bad skills at managing my pain. I just do. I've been in so much pain all of my life. I was halfway through my life, as of this date today, I was about halfway through my life when I got diagnosed finally. And then it was another 10 years before anyone bothered to help me figure out how to manage it on a routine basis. Because I just wasn't seeing the right people, apparently. And in the interest of dealing with those pain issues, you find workarounds. You figure out what little things you can do in advance. Like you heard the saying, an ounce of prevention is worth a pound of cure. It applies to a lot of things in life, truthfully. So you find little ways to keep ahead of things so it doesn't become the problem. You know that it can, you know that it will. And while that is helpful, it can also be problematic. In my case, the example I'm going to give you is that the fibro has led to such pain management issues that I've had to take muscle relaxers most of my life. I've had to take pain meds on and off almost since I was diagnosed with fibromyalgia. Maybe not 15, probably more like 20, so 16 years. The problem for me is that I come from a family with a documented indication of addiction issue. My mother was an addict. My sister was an addict. Well, you should say they're still an addict. They're in recovery. That's the appropriate way to phrase it. But my sister, unlike our mother, knew that she was going to be having a family, and for that reason put herself through rehab. She went the mature route. She went the adult route. She took it upon herself to get healthy in the interest of the fact that she was going to be having a child. Our mother didn't do that. She went a hard 180 the other way, our mother. I was, familiar in the world of drug dealing from the age of awareness onwards. So I don't like taking pain medication is the point, because I know it exists. I've seen it start in myself. Fortunately, the last few years, I've been working with a doctor who is indescribably amazing. And I'm not going to give out personal details like name and where she works and all that, but the point is I got lucky enough to get a doctor who is amazing beyond amazing. A doctor who understands and appreciates all the things I've just told you and appreciates the fact that I want to keep her over informed. She's not the kind of doctor who's like, you don't have to tell me every little thing like you're an adult. No, this doctor likes that I tell her, I'm feeling like this because of the medication. I'm feeling like that because of the medication. Or I'm feeling like this and like this. Should I be on a medication? Because I'm not a fan of Western medicine. I'm not. I never have been for a lot of reasons, not the least of which is the family addiction issue. So I got lucky. I got this doctor who, I would do countless things just for the sake of keeping her as my doctor. And recently I was having that issue with the pain med that I was on. Now that I've stopped taking that pain med, and this is within this week, I'm not saying it was months ago, it's this week that I stopped taking that pain med. I'm fortunate that my body tends to clean itself of medications relatively quick, which I think has to do with my metabolism. I don't know. I don't have a medical degree. That's a theory. So that was 4 or 5 days ago. And I realized in recent weeks and months, I've basically been shortchanging myself, getting in my own way. I know what I mean. I hope it's coming across. So one of the things I did in the last few months was I got one of those long reacher grabber tools. Yeah, I know. Typically you see it for people who are in a wheelchair or who are disabled and they genuinely can't bend or reach to get something. So when you have pain issues, you get one of those and you think, well, that's really helpful. Now I don't have to do all of that bending. I'm not going to overexert my back. I'm not going to make everything hurt. And that is true in the moment you're using it. The bat crap crazy reality of fibromyalgia, though, is that the more you avoid moving in the interest of preventing pain, the more pain you will be in long term. Because when you're inactive, and this is true of people without fibro, as it's been explained to me by a medical professional, again, I don't have a degree, this is just how I understand what I've been taught. The more inactive you are, the more your muscles atrophy. You're not using them, so they waste away. That's what happens. So the more and more that I rely on those little things, those ounces of prevention here and there, like the reacher grabber to keep me from overstretching and straining stuff, I'm actually robbing myself of the opportunities to use my muscles. I'm actually preventing myself from stretching my ligaments and stretching my tendons and using my body the way we are evolutionarily designed to do things, to be physical and active. And it's a lot to take on board. It's a lot to admit that you've basically been screwing yourself over. It's not easy. It's not easy to do in here, and it's not easy for most of us to do out loud. But I've been doing it. So I now have to remind myself every time I want to grab my reaching tool, do you actually need that? You need to bend, you need to stretch, you need to be physical. If you're not using your body's going to hate you for not using it, and it's going to be self-sustaining. And that's just the way of it. Now, if you know me in real life, you know that I'm a fluffy girl. And yes, I use that word because I'm a big, long-term fan of Gabriel Iglesias. Gabriel Iglesias. At the moment, I'm in the neighborhood of 300 pounds. Yeah, I know, a woman admitting her actual weight. But I can no more deny that I'm fat than that I wear glasses, that I'm female, or that I'm blonde. I am who I am. Denying myself that physical activity in the interest of avoiding pain leads to muscular atrophy, doesn't lead to fat atrophy. Your fat doesn't dissipate the way your muscles will when you're inactive. That's why it's such a vicious thing, that you're not physical, you put on weight, the weight doesn't go anywhere, because I think somehow people have convinced themselves that when you're stationary, if your muscles atrophy, well then the fat must as well. That's not how things work. See, I can see my double chin shaking as I do that. Wow, I gotta work on myself. So that's part of the self-sustaining nature. That's part of the dichotomy. Recently, I have been losing weight. Dramatically? No. Significantly? Depends on how you define significance. 10 pounds in 2 months is good for someone who hasn't been losing weight for, my kids are 3 years? 3 years, my weight's been around 300. Not long after my daughter was born, I got back up to 300. Is it as big as I've ever been? No, but it's too damn close for my comfort. So I'm working on it. The best anyone can do when they have an issue or a situation is work on it. And I'm trying to retrain myself in the interest of teaching my kids. Because my mother was huge. My mother was a 400 plus pound agoraphobic chain smoker, to say nothing of her drug use and drug dealing. Sooner or later, those patterns and chains have to get broken. My childhood was so traumatic and abusive that I said to myself for a long time I wouldn't have kids. No one would ever be able to tolerate me long enough to get to that point. And then the universe had other ideas and I got to that point. Now having those kids, I knew I had the hard 180. Every time I feel a reflex that I can identify from my childhood, I hard 180. My mother was a screamer. Constant, perpetual, horrifically abusive screaming. I have one significant memory of one time I had a nightmare, and I went to the door of my bedroom crying, viciously crying. I was very upset and scared from the nightmare, but I knew I wasn't allowed to leave my room, so I was just standing at my doorway. At the other end of the apartment, which was relatively big, my mother's watching television. It's got to be 10, 11 o'clock at night. I stood there crying for like 15 minutes. No one came to comfort me. Finally, my mother gets herself out of her recliner, walks around the corner from the living room so that she can see me. Now at this point it's like a Western standoff. I'm at one end, she's at the other end. Wah, wah, wah. The second I see her, her eyes are flaming red. She is angry. And she takes her whole 400-pound self and marches straight at me. Eyes boring into me demon-like. I ran and hid in my closet. She followed me into my bedroom and yelled at me for making a commotion, for making a ruckus, for being loud for no reason, for not being mature enough to just deal with the fact that it was a dream and go the fuck back to sleep. It's worth pointing out I was 8 when this happened. So I hid in my bedroom closet. She yelled at me through the door for a couple of minutes and then stomped back to the living room to watch TV. The next thing I remember is my dad knocking on the door, trying to figure out where the hell I was when he came to get me for school the next morning. I said, I'm in here. He opened the door, he looked at me. He said, what the hell are you doing in your closet? And I just kind of picked up my head. I mean, I didn't sleep well. I was in the closet, curled up on the floor. I picked up my head and I looked at him and I said, hiding from Mom? And so pervasive was this behavior with her that my dad just looked at me and went, oh. All right, well, you got to get up and get ready for school now. And I did. What happened? I'm coming. Okay, they're fine. They were playing with the dog's crate and she bumped her knee. They had been peacefully watching Moana and having breakfast, so it's fine. I had my ear on them the whole time. So I told this to my dad, and my dad just goes, oh. All right, well, you got to get ready for school. Memories like that are what have informed my parenting. When my kids cry, I'm up. If my kids fall asleep with me and their dad tries to move them, it wakes me. Every time. If my kids want to fall, like recently my daughter started routinely saying things like she was nervous or scared at bedtime and she wanted to cuddle with me, I don't argue. I say, okay, well then you have to go through the routine, brush, potty, put on a fresh diaper. If you're going to cuddle with me in my bed, then you need to wear a diaper. That's my condition for you because you're not ready for undies at bedtime yet. And she does all this, and then she gets in bed, and she demands to fall asleep. Well, not demands, but she says that she has to fall asleep with her head on my shoulder, hugging my arm. I know, that's so fucking adorable, right? And it melts me. Every time my kids ask for something, and they show this affection to me, it melts me. Like recently, I think it was earlier this week, I built a new dresser, sorry Loki, for my daughter. Now while I was in here building it, she was helping. And no less than 4 times while I'm building it for her, and she knows it's for her, she says, Mommy, can I give you a great big kiss on the cheek and a hug? While I'm building it.
Mommy, I
Yes.
got a cut.
Where do you have a cut? You don't have a cut?
Yeah.
I see a bonk. You don't. Let me see. You don't have a cut.
I did.
You're not bleeding. Let me see.
Mm,
Let me see. Let me see.
3 minutes.
I'll get you a Band-Aid if you want one, but it's just a bonk and a scrape, honey. You're not bleeding, so it's not a cut means that you're bleeding. That's the kind of owie that a cut is. It's bleeding.
Come over here.
What? Yeah, I'm coming. I'm coming.
I have an idea.
What's your idea?
Jumping in muddy puddles.
Dax, you're in the house. There's no muddy puddles. Oh, Loki's gonna give you kisses because you said you have an owie. Oh, speaking of, hi, Loco. You gonna kiss on your sister?
Can I finish my game?
You can finish the movie and then finish your games. You have to watch Moana.
I don't need Moana. I'm gonna finish my game.
Kisses do tickle when puppies kiss you. But it's a nice kind of tickle, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. Dax, if you want to switch to the Xbox, you have to get your sister to agree. She's probably watching the movie.
I need ice to my one.
Dax, if you're going to switch the input to the Xbox, you have to check with your sister first. I told you, that's the rule. You have to get your sister to agree. You can't just change something she's watching. So, that was more than a few minutes, I admit, and I apologize. If you've watched it all the way to the end, thank you. If you have thoughts, please comment.
Yeah.
If you care to keep up with cute videos of my kids being adorable, hit subscribe. I do actually have a podcast on Libsyn, Libsyn. Typically I try to post those thoughts there, but sometimes I just post it on video because I have to get over the idea of how much I hate looking at myself in a camera or in a mirror. You'll never be comfortable with things unless you push yourself out of your comfort zone. So, hope y'all are surviving well with yours during the universe's imploding status right now. The next video will probably be my kids.